right, good morning. This actually might work out because I went 8 minutes over in my dry run, so now I got a little bit more time here. We'll see what happens. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nathan Trevino, and I'm with the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. I'm the supervisor for the air monitoring program. So this morning, we're going to briefly go over data, systems, training, documentation, and additional resources. As you've heard briefly this morning, the core foundation of where we get our reports, the information that determines attainment, strategies, and even real-time data for the public is all driven off of station operators. So just by a show of hands, how many of you are involved in station operations? Okay, please keep your hands up. I just wanted to extend some gratitude and appreciation for all the work that you guys are doing. Many of you guys deal in extreme elements. If you're in San Luis, you got those varying temperature swings, or in calm areas like the San Joaquin Valley where you got temperatures of 110 during the summer. No matter what, you guys are going out and taking care of business, whether it's changing filters, doing repairs. You guys are definitely on it, and so I just wanted to take a moment to extend gratitude because all the work that you do, regardless of the conditions, you guys do it consistently. Your heart's in the right place, your commitment and your dedication in your work. So again, thank you all. So throughout the morning, we've been talking about data, and the data is the foundation of the work that we do. And the data is used in a number of different areas, whether it be meeting state air quality standards or federal standards, if we're putting together attainment plans, attainment strategies, if we're doing forecasting, or real-time updates to the public whenever conditions warrant notification, for smoke management, research analysis. Everything that is being produced out of these sites is being used in a number of different facets. And so the work that you guys are doing every day in an effort to make sure that the public is using this in a manner that is needed, it's important for us to have a good foundation in how we're producing this data. This data needs to be of good quality. It needs to meet, regulatory requirements, and it needs to be defensible. And in essence, you guys are the centerpiece that makes this all possible. If it isn't for the work that you're doing, all of these components come apart. The reports that we do, the information we provide to the public, it essentially crumbles, and I know it was mentioned earlier. And so depending on what agency that you're at, some of you may be wearing 5 or 6 hats, depending on what's going on. You may be doing site maintenance or dealing with lease agreements or working on data management systems. All these different components, you all are involved in that process. And so essentially, in an effort to make sure that all this works, we have to have an effective quality system. So what is that? It's a mechanism that ensures that data is complete, accurate, and of high quality that can be used for various purposes. So what essentially builds on that quality system? This conference essentially drives that. The whole premise behind this is to ensure that there's some consistency across the board, that the work that we're doing follows standard operating procedures. Are we meeting, or do we have established data quality objectives as we approach this? Do we have technical bulletins or memorandums that help deal with short-term situations? Making sure that we have this information there helps us so when we are in a situation where we need to justify or defend the data that we're putting together, these elements are essentially established. Corrective actions, and there'll be a discussion on that later on. A mechanism to be able to remedy whenever a situation comes about. How do you identify where that problem occurred, and what can you do to make sure that you remedy that situation so it doesn't come up again and potentially impact data? Maintenance, repair, and calibration records. Making sure that over the course of your duties when you're doing all of this work that you're documenting all the details of what exactly is taking place. We come from a situation where we used to just say biweekly maintenance. Well, what exactly does that consist of? What are we actually doing? Those are the elements that are going to be critical to make sure that that we're effectively communicating what exactly is taking place. And then finally, automated data validation and notifications. With the new data management systems. There's tools in there that allow site operators or other individuals that monitor the data on an hourly basis to be able to know what's going on. If you have a situation that's taking place, you don't know about it the following day when you review your reports. You're actually getting information, near real time. I mean, how many of you that have been around used to carry pagers when going to sites? There we go. Now we're at a point where I don't know if agencies are fortunate enough to have smartphones or if you're still with flip phones, but the point I'm getting at is that now that you have these tools, you can effectively know what's going on without having to be in the office anymore. And that makes it even a bigger tool for those of you that are out there and doing this work on a regular basis. I think over the last 5 years, I can say that I usually get calls whenever the stations are down. Nobody usually says, hey, thanks for keeping the station up. And so the thing is, and matter of fact, my counterpart here, he literally got a text an hour ago because the site's down. So it's nuts. I mean, it's nice to have an opportunity to come here, but it's also a significant point that those of you who are involved in this, it never ends. And so it's definitely a good breed of folks that are committed to the work that they're doing. And so having all of this available to them makes you that much more of an effective technician depending on what exactly you're doing. So obviously we've talked about a number of elements here, and so maintaining all of this it's a complex system. There's a lot of elements involved in it. Where normally you used to go out to a station and bring it down, within 30 minutes somebody's calling asking why you took it down. And it becomes a bit of a challenge because that if you don't follow your process of doing it on a regular basis, you might pay for it later on because it'll be down for much longer than the hour or two that you need it. So there's definitely a lot of components going on. So again, to follow up on an effective quality system, we also need to have consistency in what we do. Making sure that we're following standard procedures, doing remedial training when necessary. I know that we have cases where we have individuals that are retiring out and we have new staff coming in. It's important to keep that information relevant to everybody involved, so that way the process is maintained regardless of who's coming out or who's going out and who's coming in. And then attention to detail. Again, we talked about making simple entries of doing biweekly maintenance versus specifically talking about the elements that are taking place. And those elements are going to be critical whenever your data is being challenged and they have to reverse connect those data points. And any of you who has been involved in a TSA know what I'm talking about. They go through that through a fine-tooth comb. And it's a good thing because it actually helps and improve in what we're doing. And again, to make sure that we can defend the data that we produce. So one of the examples that I wanted to talk about, actually there's a few, has to do with the attention to detail with even just your sites. So in this picture or image here, we have a situation where we have one of our sites back in 2010. Everything looked clean, everything was cut, and it met siting criteria. And in 8 years, we've had this growth where it essentially creates a wall and it blocks the predominant airflow coming into the unit. So from a maintenance perspective, it's important for technicians to be involved in the process. When you see stuff like this, communicate it up through your chain and make sure that this attention is dealt with. Otherwise, you could potentially lose data because now you have an interference that is not getting dealt with. So I believe we just took care of that earlier this year, and now we're back to square. There's another situation going on where, again, attention to detail, the littlest things that you may not even imagine or envision would be a problem do occur. So in this particular case, we had a brand new site that got installed in 2010, and over the course of the years, it apparently started to get run down. And so what the images show is a lot of the water penetrating in some of the seams. So I don't know if you could tell in this image, it's starting to lift up. Why was that a big deal? Last year, when we started approaching the winter season, we noticed that we had a monitor that would do random errors, and we really couldn't figure out what was going on. And we started diving through a number of different points. The first area we focused on was electrical. Did we have an UPS that was running correctly? All that checked out. Come to find out that we had an exposed electrical line coming into the power meter, and whenever it rained, there was spikes. So it seemed pretty obvious, and we took care of it. I think a few days went by, and it popped right back up again. And so this is before we actually got images of the outer perimeter of the building. Time went on. We even swapped out an instrument. That other instrument started doing the exact same thing. And so we were really trying to figure out what was going on. During one of the PQAO CAC meetings, I happened to make a visit and stop by. And not only did I notice what you're seeing on the picture on the right, but there was a lot of water collecting in the water basin. And ultimately what ended up occurring was there was high RH in the room that was actually making its way in, and the instrument was getting sensitive enough that it would swing and do extreme negative readings and extreme positive readings. Once we put in a dehumidifier, all those errors subsided dramatically. And so at